Hi, thanks for joining us on demand for Wyzant's first ever homeschooling roundtable. Welcome to all of our viewers. My name is Sean. I am a member of the team here at Wyzant. I'll be helping to keep this conversation going as our panel of experts discuss topics on everyone's minds these days, homeschooling, remote learning, and how parents and families can keep their at-home students on a path to success in their education in this unprecedented time right now. We're so very excited for you guys to join us. Um, in many ways, tutors are on the front lines of our shared education crisis. They are out there all over the country, day in and day out, working to keep students engaged and learning as routines and support systems, both the students' routines and support systems and those of their families, have just been turned upside down by COVID-19. In just a matter of a few weeks, we've seen new approaches taking shape, including how governments are approaching this, publishers, content creators, educators, tech providers, teachers, and especially tutors, all rethinking how we are using remote learning and online platforms as a temporary solution to the current crisis we're in. Try that again. We want to help families find ways to manage their own versions of homeschooling and give you some concrete advice on how to succeed and maybe even thrive in online education. There's a lot to take in, and the learning curve for this sort of thing is kind of steep. I know when I was growing up, I can't think of a time where I didn't have a face-to-face outlet when I was learning and in school. It's going to be kind of a steep learning curve, this remote learning, but we decided to cut through all the noise and go straight to the source for some expert advice. So we gathered some of the top homeschool tutors on Wyzant to help us unravel this issue. What homeschooling is, what it isn't, what families struggling with at-home education can learn about managing such a crucial responsibility. I'm very excited to introduce our panel of educators. First, we have James Lanier. He hails from Cary, North Carolina, and for the last several years has averaged roughly 1,000 hours a year teaching homeschoolers core subjects in both STEM and the humanities. Welcome, James.
Glad to be here.
Next, we have Pam Schaefer. She lives in Northampton, Pennsylvania. Pam has taught middle school math and science for more than 20 years, including helping to homeschool a member of the USA Olympic team. That's pretty cool. Hi, Pam. Up next, Becky Dole, who is connecting with us from St. Peters, Missouri. Her experience includes a master's in elementary education and 30 plus years experience, don't want to forget that. Becky is a member of 7 professional organizations, including the Teachers Association International and International Tutoring Association. Welcome, Becky.
Thanks.
And last but certainly not least, Camelia Crawford, who lives in Aurora, Illinois, which is actually super close to where I grew up in Bolingbrook. She's a Chicago neighbor. She's been tutoring homeschooled students since 1998. Hello, Camelia. Okay, so on behalf of Wyzant and all of our viewers, I just want to thank you guys for volunteering your time sincerely to help us create this important resource. If you're out there and you're watching this roundtable and you want to connect with any one of these tutors on the panel, we've included links to their Wyzant profiles in the description below. And without further ado, let's kind of just dive into our discussion. Okay, so first things first, traditional homeschooling is a lot different than kind of what we're experiencing right now. Online or remote learning versions of what homeschooling used to be. basically resulting from school closures. What are the main differences between traditional homeschooling and what we're experiencing right now?
I think one of the most obvious is who is actually doing the main instructing, who's doing the lesson planning, who's ultimately accountable. In traditional homeschooling, the parent does it all. They're the administrator. They choose the curriculum. They do the instructing. They grade the papers. They write the tests. They do everything. Whereas in what we're doing now, the school is responsible. They do however much teaching they're able to do, and then they give it to the parents and say, okay, now you go do it. And that's kind of what's happening now. They're both happening at home. That's how they're alike. But
Yes.
that's really about it.
Yeah. Pam, did you have something to add to that?
I think Becky's right on. They're both happening at home, and I like that that is a commonality. One has been mandated and kind of pushed onto them, and the other one has been invited. And I think that invitation to homeschooling, I gave it a thought when I had my children. My daughter was maybe 6, and she's also a teacher now. And I thought about it, and I think that thought lasted 5 minutes. And I decided this was not going to work for us. Yeah. So I think it's something that many parents have considered, but it hasn't always worked in their lifestyle, so they've not done it. But now it's been mandated and it's been forced on them. And in addition, they're home as well. So now we have a household that is confined, and the Wi-Fi is being used by the mom, by the dad, and all the children. And this scheduling has become a big challenge.
Yeah. And that's something else that I kind of want to mention is the schedule. Whereas with your traditional homeschool, it is completely flexible. You don't necessarily even have to do it every day. You want to skip a week. You want to go, well, we're not going on vacation now, but you go on vacation, you take it on the road with you, and your lessons might be geography, looking at where you are. Whereas right now, although it's not as rigid as it would be in a classroom, there is a definite set schedule. There are due dates. You need to have it done by X date. And many children meet online at a certain time of the day. So it doesn't have the flexibility that traditional homeschooling does at all.
The other thing I saw, it's not only the flexibility, a lot of the time, especially my homeschool students, they have due time for the end of the day. And they start doing homework at 8. Mm-hmm. So procrastinating, it's very bad right now.
Yeah.
They call me at 6. I have something due. I said, when did you know this? 8 o'clock this morning. And there's nobody to reach out to.
Right.
Get a little bit of help, just a introduction to the new unit, and then, like you said, go with it. Well, what if they had questions? And this time the teacher can't see their faces and figure it out. Oh, they didn't get it. Maybe I should try another way. Maybe we should try a couple examples. There is nothing like that. And the first time when there's nobody to answer to and nobody to help them with the prompts. So both the schedule that was set in place and they're used to it, it's gone, and the help, it's gone too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a big one.
Yeah. James, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I thought Camille's point was really great about the unpreparedness, basically, of this COVID situation, that no one actually slated how the schedule is going to work. When you think in terms of like motivation for students, which is one of the most important aspects underlying learning. So like we don't learn well when we're not motivated. Lots of studies have shown this. Well, motivation generally consists of about 3 things as major factors. We've got control over the situation, which with COVID we have very little. We have competence, so a feeling that we're actually succeeding at what we're attempting. Though, given how nebulous this feels like for the students who are just thrust in the situation, everything is very different. So their metrics about how they're actually achieving, whether they're doing well at school, because they don't have teacher feedback as immediate, like in a classroom where you see a smile or, yes, that's right, John. They don't have that, so competence is also hit. And then the third major factor, underlying motivation, is community. And then obviously, like when you're not in the classroom, you don't have community. So I think in this COVID-19 situation, one of the most important things we can address is how do we keep kids motivated when they're home, working without all the structures that they relied on for the learning experience.
Yeah, and to kind of tack on to all that, what do you think these families and students are struggling with the most with regards to online learning? I know we mentioned scheduling, a number of other things. What do you think is like the most that they're struggling with?
My students right now are just, well, I have a lot of juniors and seniors in high school. Realize they were supposed to take their SAT in April. It's gone. The May, it's gone. The June was canceled. And we're looking at August 29, the first possible test, with them having to apply for college November 1st. They're very stressed.
Yeah.
It's a tough time.
Yeah, very hard.
It is extremely hard to explain to them that, you know, they haven't done anything. It's nothing they can do to control it. All we can do is prepare and go with that. And we're looking at the information from the College Board. Right now, they are looking at adding 2 different months in July and September. They usually didn't have it. They have it, or they're planning to have it in order to help with this. And the other thing, they were planning to have nationwide testing for the SAT in October if it comes through. I don't have the dates for any one of those, but the students are worried. They're not going to be able to apply.
Yeah. Is there anything that your students, anyone can jump in, anything that they're sharing with you about struggling with online learning? Obviously, we just talked about how it's kind of being thrust upon them, this online learning way that we're having to do it. So is there anything that they've been sharing with you that they've been struggling with?
Yeah, mine definitely have. I work, with elementary children, and that is huge for them. Yes, they can get on and do what they want to do. They know how to do that very, very well. But to be able to go on and say, okay, now you're going to share your screen. Now you're going to go to this tab. They don't have a clue, not a clue of those types of things. So that is very difficult for them. I have found that, I just simply get them to be able to go to one place, and then any link from there, just provide it there. So they're not going all over the place trying to find links. That's, the workaround that I have found for them. But yeah, that is huge for the little ones.
Yeah, Becky's point, I think, is spot on, especially for the younger kids, that there's a lack of technological literacy. And honestly, you can't expect much out of an 8-year-old just because, when have they ever had to navigate these things before? So parents taking an interest and kind of shepherding, their kids along can go a long way. In the actual classroom, like on Wyzant, we have the ability to screen share. So that's, I found, really useful because we can actually take control of the learning situation where we screen share, we go to the different tab, and then we can interact with the younger kids where they'll say, oh yeah, write in that answer, or we click on that, and so that we can be their hands basically for them, or navigate the technology on their behalf.
Interesting. Yeah, so you're basically going into the tool and kind of instead of putting it in their hands, you're navigating the tool for them.
Exactly. And I think that it actually helps them learn because they can see someone to model after. So over time, then I can switch back so it's back into their hands, and then they take it.
Yeah.
but allowing them to see you do it is huge. Yes, that modeling is awesome.
It's also hard with the older ones, though. It doesn't take such a, well, emotionally it's hard. Half of my students, I had them in person until March 12th. And then all of a sudden, from seeing each other every week, now we are meeting online. It was a huge transition, not only for them, but for the parents. I actually had parents calling me to just say, hi.
Yeah.
Because, and they say, well, when we're going to see you next? I said, I don't know. I'm so sorry. I have no idea. But it's very different. Meeting online, or I have the students going, can my mom and dad talk to you? Yes, we can talk. Because we were used for several years, meeting, talking, going over things. They feel like they lost touch with what's going on with the student. So they feel the need to see me, to talk to me, to keep in touch, to call, to just make sure that the things we took for granted, they're still in place.
Absolutely. Yeah, and kind of to, I think everybody's, experiencing this in their own way, but there's a lot of similarities, as you guys have said. It's such a shock, kind of such a culture shock to have to, to be able to see you guys every single week or whenever you guys meet, and now you're doing it online. I want to move forward and kind of ask, like, what can traditional homeschooling teach parents about managing their child's education from home?
That is very different to start with. It has nothing to do with home. It's just schooling. And the big difference, I homeschool my daughter. She's a senior in college, so we're done with that. I think Pam mentioned that she tried it and it didn't work for them. For us, it had to work because she has hearing loss. And in school was just not enough support for her to be told the same thing 20 times until she got it. But when we started that, I didn't know that what homeschooling is, it's really a way of living. It's not necessarily schooling at home. The students are going to be home. The parents are now used to being bombarded with questions, with homework, with as a parent at home, end up doing your own homework to help your child because you don't know what they're asking you. That is big. And then you're looking at the parents working from home and having to share computers sometimes and not having the time, or trying to have a meeting with your child having to do the homework at the same time next to you. It's just, there is no separation anymore between, I'm going to work, I'm gone, I do this, I come back, we'll connect. Everything is together now. So from a homeschooling point of view, we were used to that. It kind of flows one into the other. But I think the hardest thing for the parents, they are still trying to maintain the same schedule, the same flow, and it does not really work. The older students have set times to meet on Zoom, but the younger ones rarely do that. So they do have homework task or list of some sort that they need to post by a certain time. So mom and dad are really in a position to be the teacher, to be the tutor, to be mom and dad at the same time.
In fact, I think that is one of the issues, because the children are aware of who the actual teacher is. They know that. But at the same time, it's mom or dad who is leading it at home, and they will fight that tooth and nail because you're not my teacher, and they won't do it. And in the current situation that we're in, that is huge. Something that I've heard from a lot of my parents that they struggle with. School says to do it one way, but they won't do it if mom and dad are telling them to do it.
I think that's I'm sorry. I think that's a good point, Becky, that I find, I think it's a question down the road here, but our usefulness in this whole situation is that we become the mediator.
Yes.
The children get the task. They either nationwide, I've seen this, they either have packets, very few have packets. Most of them are either doing online learning, like through Google Classroom, or they're Zooming. My granddaughter, she's 8, she Zooms every day with her teachers, and all her classmates are there, just like we are. And that seems to be the mode across the country, that they're doing that. But our role seems to be the mediator and guidance for setting goals, setting schedules. Well, when is this due? Do you have any long range assignments? So those study skills, I think, play a part in all of our tasks. Before I give up my mic, I want to ask Becky, James, and Camelia, most of my tutoring was done online with Wyzant, even before COVID. I was doing very few person-to-person, and even those I could travel to, we did online often. So is that the same percentage as you've experienced?
I'm 100% online.
Even before
Always.
COVID?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I ran into oh, go ahead, Camelia.
Sorry.
Camelia, go ahead. Yeah.
I was about half and half online and half my own students, because a lot of the students I get are from my own students. So it's not going through Wyzant. Usually it just, I get a call from a number I don't know, and they leave me a message and say, well, Cindy, talk to me, or, and that's how I get them. But because they're mostly within a very short distance of where I live, it's easy to do it. And I meet them all at the same place, like we meet at the same library. So I really don't travel from house to house. I just meet them all at the library. And the hardest part for us, because they got used to seeing me, I had a really wide range from some students refusing to sign in, absolutely refusing. We're going to wait for all of this to go away and we're going to meet you in person, to some of them signing in the next day. So it's a personality, but you are exactly on target. The authority, that line, it's cut down. So now as a tutor, I have emails from my parents who say, please, could you make her do her homework?
Yeah.
You won't listen.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of give and take, and a lot of, just based on what you guys are saying, there's a lot of like needing each other and supporting each other as far as, the parents and the tutors themselves. I do want to kind of move on to something that's a little bit related to that then. What kinds of things have you noticed your parents or the families that you work with doing in response to these school closures?
It was a very wide range again.
Yes.
Some students and parents met me online right away and said, okay, we have the time, let's start, like we're in the summer and we're going to prep for the next year, just simple. We're going to keep the homework going. If she or he has questions, we'll go over that first, and then we're going on for, that's it, summer is here, we're going through the summer prep. Most of the time, my students are somewhere in the 14 and up, all the way through college and adult. So we are using the summer to get us ahead of the year. So if I have students that are looking forward to an AP class, we start that ahead. If we're looking for testing, we start that ahead. So we are actually using this time to get ready for it. While the students and the parents who decided they're not going to do anything now are a month behind, because they decided this is going to go away. We're just waiting it out. Nothing is going to happen. But here we are.
Yeah.
I think one of the benefits of being forced to take control over your own learning has been that students actually sometimes start to make their own goals, so like Camelia was saying, they start to plan for the future, that sort of thing. That's really empowering. So I actually have the privilege of being able to speak as a former homeschooler. So I was homeschooled all the way up till 9th grade, and then I went into a private school. And I think that the thing I most value about my homeschool experience was that I was in the center of my own learning. So I learned really how to learn. And I think that's a big opportunity for students right now. But in terms of trends that I'm seeing, a lot of younger students were local for me. And I was using a lot of older students online, but I found that my younger students are transitioning with me and making that jump to online learning, which has been really encouraging and a lot of fun, because it's allowed me as an educator to meet needs in new ways, because I can be there right with them on Khan Academy or Duolingo or whatever that they're using. I think another issue here with the students is that they're starting to be a little bit more objective oriented instead of task like oriented. And so they're thinking about, how do I actually get the learning done for the AP rather than how do I turn in this assignment? So I think those are both really positive outcomes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think they like the flexibility when you open up the boundaries and allow them to be creative. I think, you know, the mind works best in a creative environment and a challenge. And I find many of the students are thriving in this. It's just a new way for a while, hopefully. I think the parents, I think their frustration has gone to solutions. I think they found some viable solutions within the frustration of use of Wi-Fi and family together.
Yeah.
To piggyback on Pam's point, she said something about like creativity and flexibility. And I thought that that's also something that I've noticed, that like, especially when it comes to sleep, students are used to having to be in class at like 8, but we know from neuroscience research that some people are actually better designed to study and engage material later in the day. And so some students are actually waking up earlier. So like range goes from about 7 in the morning all the way on till, you know, maybe 9 or 10 at night.
It does make a difference with the younger ones, but the other thing is that I found my high schoolers loving this.
Yes.
Because they're so socially minded, they want to be part of the group, they want to be with their friends. They were so connected before, they just kept that going. It's only my younger ones who have a hard time because they haven't had the time to develop that social connection yet. Or some of them are just shy. They're not exactly sociable yet, but they do keep in touch. They keep in touch on Instagram, and they call each other, and they even went as far to have chat rooms on their own.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that's all really great. It sounds like the older students, even some of the younger students, they're embracing this as kind of like an opportunity to use online learning and remote learning rather than to kind of take an early summer, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's great. Well, moving on from that, I do want to keep this going for you guys. What are some ways, some like actionable ways that parents and families can help their at-home students with their education starting right now, starting today?
Probably the easiest thing. Go ahead.
Becky, we'll start with you.
One of the big ones. Okay. I think one of the big ones, maybe not actionable, but to be supportive. It is so easy for the parents to become frustrated. It's not working. And that runs over to the kids, and that doesn't help at all. But to be supportive of what they can do, and remember too that the kids are going through a lot right now too. And yes, learning is important. Learning is incredibly important. We wouldn't be doing what we do if we didn't think so. But there's more to the children than just their brain, and we have got to support that too.
What we started this summer with the mothers and daughters, they started reading the same books just to be part of the learning together.
Oh, that's
awesome.
That's
my idea. I can't take the credit. One of my moms said, you know, I would love to read something. And I said, well, your sweet daughter just doesn't like reading. Could you please help me? Could you guys read this together and share it? Makes her more interested, and it keeps her, well, on track. They started together. They're reading Anne of Green Gables and enjoying it. They're on to Anne of Avonlea, and I'm having a great time watching it. It was the mom's idea, and I'm sharing it with the rest of the moms. And it makes the mom more aware of what her daughter is actually facing, while at the same time they're connecting in another way. So mom can help in some way, so she's not feeling as left out. Because she told me, she's like, okay, I have you waiting, but I want to do something. How can I help? How can I make this better for her? She's very frustrated. She's not sleeping well because she's stuck in a house. How are we going to do this? It's going to be long term. Now, what we're going to do? And this was one of the first things that we came up with. I mean, she said, I would love to read something. And I said, can you read Anne of Green Gables? And by the way, Audible, it's offering everything free right now.
It's a cheap plug for you.
No, I mean, I love Audible anyway, but when I told my kids they can just listen to it because all the young adult novels are available, it made my job a lot easier.
There you go. James, Pam, do you have anything to add?
Yes, I think sharing the learning rather than making the learning. And I think that goes a long way. So my parents are just incredible, and I'm sure your parents are as well, but they're just so supportive. And I have some parents who meet with the child and we have a lesson, the three of us. I have parents who send me books and then we read them together, the student and I. So I have the parents are as unique as their children, and they're all just so marvelous. And I think finding new ways to inspire them is part of our job also. Yes, right. And support them and let them know it's going to be okay, you know?
Yeah, I think that the question just goes a lot of different places. So I could just talk for all the rest of the time about what suggestions that I would make. But if I had to like lump it into a couple categories, it'd be one that a whole set of habits with each other. And if you start to pull out on one habit,
James, do you mind just repeating that?
It
just cut out a little bit.
From the routine. Oh yeah, sorry. So habits underlie learning, and the habits are like stacked on top of each other. And when you take out a habit or you remove the trigger from the routine, then everything starts to crumble. So what these students are finding is that they're having like a attention crisis, right? Their cell phone's right there, Snapchat goes on, and it's like, oh, wait, I gotta check that. But then it's like, what was I doing in math or whatever? So I think parents can really jump in terms of helping the student to provide structure. Like, hey, this is the place in our house where we're actually going to do the work. And then the cell phone, it's not like we're going to like say it's not allowed like it's, you know, at school, but we're going to put the cell phone in a different room for right now. And then when you finish this section, you can go and Snapchat for a while and come back and start a new topic. I think it's important that the parents, though, don't end up controlling the whole process. Because if you remember, my earlier point was about motivation, and that actually having control over your own learning is really motivating. So when parents are making lots and lots of rules, that can be demotivating. On the other hand, when they're providing no structure, then the whole attention problem is happening. And I think that providing some rules, but also a lot of freedom is a key to success.
Have you seen that providing that structure has allowed some of the online like tutoring lessons to go more smoothly than the ones that are unstructured?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Definitely. Usually I have the whole lesson set up in 3 points, so they know what we're doing. First, we review the homework they had, either the homework from school or the homework I gave them in preparation for something else we're doing. Then we're doing something new, and then we are usually divided in 3 groups. We do the math, we do ELA, we do reading, And sometimes with one group of my students right now, because they wanted to write, and it's hard to write without a motivation, without a topic. So we went ahead and used the NaNoWriMo, or National Novel Writing Month, to stay at home. And all about 4 of my girls are actually participating and starting to write this month a novel. How far we're gonna go,
Wonderful.
don't know. It's a really, really big goal, but we're trying this. So we are spending our last part of the session going over their writing for the last week. So we're just dividing like 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes. Review, new, a novel. Something creative that will allow them to use the time well. They actually have a lot of time in their hands right now, instead of just spending that, like James was saying, on Snapchat. You know, reading will be beautiful, but it's not happening that easily. We know it. So I'm trying to offer them other ways of using this time, and creative ways too.
Yeah, it honestly sounds like we're kind of hitting a lot of same themes, where, you know, things that you guys are finding successful is being invested and sharing with the learning, rather than kind of sending them off on their own. I want to segue into just kind of talk about online tutoring in and of itself. How or where does online tutoring fit in the remote learning homeschooling type equation? Like, how does it help, and where does it fit?
I think it's supportive, definitely supportive. It fills in the gaps. I mean, the teachers were thrown into this as well. So many of them have been using already so much technology. I know the school where I used to teach before I retired, the books are gone and it's techno, it's online. So they already had the tools in place, thank goodness. Yeah. So then when the children went home, the assignments just kept coming. Mm-hmm. And you know, the clicks, the animations, the children knew what to do.
I think something else that we can do is, one of the pieces that is missing is all of the things that happen within the classroom to support the learning, whether, you know, that's, you know, the teacher giving prompts, you know, the children talking to other children and kind of bouncing ideas off of each other. All of those things are missing because they're not in the classroom. We obviously cannot supply them working with other children unless you have groups of children meeting together, but we can supply those prompts. I work with many of my children, and especially their writing. They need work on that. And we go through, okay, this is your first step. Now, what do you think? And I don't tell them what to do, but I just supply those prompts for them. And they so desperately need that. You know, again, I do the little ones. So they don't have that under their belt yet. They really need to be guided on that. And there just is not time right now for the teachers to do that for all of their children. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, when students are running across new topics, I think parents really start to think about a tutor, you know, so it could be that, you know, you have a kid who's trying to learn calculus, but you don't really feel like calculus is your thing as a parent. You might have had a totally different major, you don't do engineering, so you might want to seek out a tutor for subject knowledge. I think that's how most people think about tutoring. But I've also found it's really useful for keeping the motivation going. So if you remember, you know, the 3 main areas that are underlying the motivation would have been the confidence, the community, and the control. I think on the community and the confidence issue, tutors really can actually spot things because we're trained to like identify and problem solve about the student in front of us. And so like working on the confidence thing that's just our bread and butter. And then the community, well, you know, sometimes a tutor can be infectious and a love for a particular topic. Like you came to the tutor because you're failing calculus, but honestly, you ended up like loving calculus by the end of it because you found out, wow, that was really fun. So.
Yeah, just to piggyback off that, James, how is online tutoring, how does that fit into those three things that you mentioned?
Oh, sorry. So when we're thinking about community, that would be the relational kind of element. So if I've got a tutor in front of me, that's just another relationship that I have. And so as I'm thinking about like a topic, let's say it's history, we're learning about, you know, Columbus finding America. If the tutor had a passion for it and there's, you know, books and stories and, you know, even artifacts you can pull out and show, you know, the student, that might actually attract them. Another thing about it, though, is that a tutor gets to tailor the entire session to that student. So if I had a student who like, I hate history, I can start exploring what they do love and then relate history to that thing. And so the relational element actually provides a lot of meaning for an individual student.
Pam, did you want to add something there?
No, he's right on. He's right on. And I was thinking, what makes a good classroom teacher? Well, I always felt what makes a good classroom teacher is engagement. You know, the biggie, engagement. And if you have your student who's in front of you via real person or via camera engaged with you, that's the key. I'm not saying this for any other reason, just to give an example, but we did water displacement for an unknown, an odd-shaped object using, I had a rectangular prism and we colored it, and I made the mistake of coloring it dark purple, and the marker that I had made, you couldn't see it anymore, so I had to get a rubber band and put that on. So we did water displacement with, you know, right here in front of the camera, but I had to put a sheet over my keyboard before I did it so I wouldn't ruin it. So, you know, engagement, and if I'm watching the student and they're like zoning out, you know, I'll do something else, you know, clap with me or do something else to get them with me. Or sometimes, you know, I have 2 high school students who are sometimes off task, and now they're in a competition. Now they're way across miles away from each other. They'll probably never meet, but they're in a competition to try to do Quizlet. We've made vocabulary words on Quizlet. I know that's one of the questions on what other websites you use. And they're now in a competition, and I just casually get mentioned that this student has done it in this many seconds. And the other student said, well, I can beat that. And we were off camera. And the next time I met with that student, that score was so low, I couldn't beat it. And so now the other student is challenging the first student. So it's an engagement thing, I think. And getting them to believe in themselves, like you said, James, you know, that control, that excitement. If we have students who are excited about doing a project a certain way, we'll use that. I have young students writing books on Google Slides, and I share them with their email and with their parents' email, so the parents can always see what's going on. I think that transparency is so important. When you're online with these young students, for heaven's sakes, if you're a tutor, get your criminal check done. You know, sign on the line and get your criminal check done. Within seconds, you should do that. So I think that's what makes us successful, is that we have parents who trust us, and we take it seriously, don't we?
Yeah, and make the students successful with your engagement and with your like sense of community. Camelia, did you want to add anything to like the online, how it kind of like online tutoring fits with your homeschooling?
It makes a big difference. You know what? My homeschoolers, they're used to me because it's in person. But the ones that made the biggest difference for the online are the students who were in person before, and they are lost right now. That connection that we had before, it transferred very easily into online, even for the students who absolutely hated the idea.
Mm-hmm.
The ones who benefit the most are the shy ones. The ones who have a hard time making connections socially, actually raising the hand in classroom, they thrive here because there's no competition, nobody to actually worry about, oh, if I ask that question, I'm going to look funny or everybody's going to laugh at me. They just go with it. They really, really went way past what I thought they could do. I have a group of about 4. They were all very shy. And even before we started online, in person, they were shy. They're better off a month into it. So I can't tell you why is this, but I think Pam hit it. They need that connection. They need to feel something is so normal. And somehow that connection we had before, it transferred into online because it's the same.
Having that like video connection,
Yeah.
that really helps.
Yes.
That's great.
It's hard for them to be home. It's hard for them to lose everything. The schedule, the school, the friends, all the normal life, it's out the window. But there's one connection to stay put. Although I can't see them every day, we still do it online.
I think that's exactly right. And if we all think back in our own learning experiences, I'm sure that we can remember, a teacher who believed in us, and that made all the difference. And I mean, just being here with the 3 of y'all tutors, it's just so clear to me that like you guys believe in your students, and like that just means a lot. And learning happens when people believe in their students.
Amen.
It does.
Absolutely.
Good job.
High five to the camera. To kind of go off something Pam was referring to, I want to kind of get, what are some of your favorite resources for online homeschooling and remote learning right now?
Go ahead.
Well, again, with my really little ones, fortunately they're free, but I teach reading. I do a lot of reading, and there is just a wonderful program, Teach Your Monster to Read. And the kids, the 4 or 5-year-olds, they get on there. They don't need a teacher at that point. They just get on there and they go. All they need is for me just to guide them and just to say, oh, you're doing great. That's really all they need, and that does it. Once they get a little bit older, we do education.com a lot. Again, it is great for the younger kids, and they're able to go with their own pace, which I absolutely love. Absolutely love.
Camelia, you were about to say something?
I have older students, so we try Khan Academy, which works and doesn't work. It depends on the student. It's really a love and hate relationship. They either love it right away or they hate it right away, and it has nothing to do with anything but their personality. So we use that. We use Crash Course. We use a lot of the NASA data for science projects.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of, because we spend the time in the library, we literally have the library to ourselves most of the time. This is not it. But what we learn to do, it's actually, because they're older, they can do it on their own. So they share the screen, they share their Chromebook with me, they send pictures, we actually pop it on the screen and work with them. The other thing that we figure it out just lately is to take pictures of everything they do and put it up on Wyzant so we can both see it. At the beginning, when we started this, we actually just tried to do it without the help of the paperwork. It did not work well. And because the Chromebook, they cannot actually sign into the Wyzant, it doesn't have enough power. They have to learn to somehow share the picture on the Chromebook with me while we're on Wyzant.
So your students are, some of them taking pictures of the actual like things that you're working on and sending them over Messenger and the online tool?
Yes.
Cool.
Because the Chromebook cannot sign in. It would be lovely if we could, but a lot of the students in our area, they actually have Chromebooks with them, but they can't sign in. They don't have the power to do so, so they have to be on another laptop while we're doing the homework and we're working through the questions they had or the review packet or whatever they're working on that they got stuck. So they take a picture and go, well, I did this and it was wrong. What did I do wrong, or where did I miss it? It will be a lot easier if I can actually go over it with them, but it doesn't work that way, so we're adapting.
Yeah, we're kind of adapting right now.
Yes, we don't have a choice.
Pam, were you going to say something?
I'm always going to say something. That's my problem.
You're a teacher.
Every year I pick a word of the year, and 2 years ago it was to listen. So I'm working on it. Haven't gotten there yet. I use quite a few websites depending upon the age of the student. I've had adults taught dog training, helped her to pass her test for dog training, all the way down to teaching a young boy how to read. So I use flashcards. That's not a website, but I just hold them up, and we see how fast they can do them, and I'm getting very good at peeling them off quickly. Yeah, so we do a lot of that. I do a lot of puppets too. Yeah, I don't have Mr. Foxy here, but I don't know where he is. Oh, he's over there by the piano. So I have Mr. Foxy, so maybe when I share this, I'll go get him and you can get to know him.
So a lot of your resources are physical ones.
They are. Cool. Yeah, high five, fist bump, All right, so I digress. I'm sorry. So the ones that I use, I wrote quite a few down, are ixl.com.
Yes.
Fantastic. They share, I share, we all share, and then they have homework in a certain area. Education.com, I think you mentioned that, Camelia or Becky.
I did.
Great worksheets, and then you can bring them up. You can upload them. ReadWorks, I use that for my reading.
Yeah.
Wonderful site. Desmos Calculator, when we really want to check to see if we did it correctly. Those graphing of inequalities. And I guess that was it. We just started doing some museum tours of the virtual museums, so we can, explore and expand. We'll read a story in ReadWorks, and it'll just expand into other things. And all right, let's find out, and let's go to a museum. And so, all right, for next week, I'll go to the museum, you go to the museum. Let's share one thing that we found that we thought was interesting. So
that is interesting.
Foxy.
Yeah.
I'll get Mr. Foxy.
Okay. Well, while Pam's doing that, James, do you have any resources that you?
Yeah, I think that it really kind of depends on what student and what problem we're trying to solve. But like in the biggest picture, Khan Academy comes to mind, though I think that students always kind of go towards watching the videos instead of working the problems. And I wanted to deprioritize the videos. Not that they're not useful, they really are. But I think that learning happens a lot when you break something and you see it not work in front, and then you figure out what happened. So I always encourage them to hit the problems first. Duolingo for languages. Pam mentioned Quizlet.com. That's fantastic. The fact that there's pre-made flashcards on everything, all the way up through med school, and whatever you want it, ancient Sanskrit, cuneiform, you can learn it on Quizlet. And so even if a deck isn't like the perfect deck, just starting with any deck to practice is such a huge edge on the learning process. So I encourage people to just work through decks early. Then on math, there's one supplement that I'd add, and that's Coda software. It's like codasoftware.com. There's a lot of free math worksheets there on everything from like elementary all the way on up.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of, I don't want to say unexpected resources, but a lot of like resources that you guys have at your disposal when you're doing online lessons. It's very interesting to hear about like the flashcards, and then the thing that stuck with me was the being able to tour a museum, where I wouldn't even like think that I would be able to do that in person, let alone online. But that's really cool that you guys are kind of adapting as well. So I want to be respectful of your time. So we're getting close to the end of this roundtable. So I'll kind of, I want to ask each one of you for final piece of advice for parents and families who are trying to make this remote homeschooling work, and what you kind of hope our viewers will take away from this discussion. Whoever wants to start. Camelia, go for it.
Well, I homeschooled mine for 15 years, so I'll go with this. Keep in mind that whatever it's not worth it in 20 years, so it's not going to make a difference, it's not going to make a difference. Give yourself a pat in the back or two and say, I'm doing this the best I can, and go with the flow.
Yeah. Yeah. I would go completely along with Camelia that we need to make sure that parents as well as the children are enjoying the process, and not to get so bogged down in making sure everything is perfect and we do it all. Enjoy it. As much as possible, we're home together. Let's just enjoy being home.
And I think listen to your children and be willing to be flexible, both for yourself and your own standards as for the ones you set for your children, and enjoy the process. This is a unique time, and there are some horrible things happening, and we know that, but there are some very good things coming out of this. Families are eating at the table more. I'm cooking more. You know, I'm learning some new recipes that I hope I remember long after this is over. So we're eating, you know, pancakes, homemade pancakes, and yeah, it's a good thing. So embrace that and just love them.
My advice would be, since learning's happening in the brain, and the brain involves like all of you, think about all the factors that will lead to good brain health, like sleep, exercise, community, and those factors can actually be some of the most important factors in learning in the long run. A second piece of advice would be, when you break a problem and it's just right there in front of you, and it feels like a catastrophe, that's the moment then you start your autopsy. Why did this thing die? Jugglers have a saying, a drop is a sign of progress. So I never look at a problem that was failed or whatever, you know, just falls apart as a failure, because it's really my information about how to go forward.
Well said, James.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, again, the themes just keep running through this entire thing. It sounds like a lot of it is community, and you know, whether it's in person or online learning, remote learning, what's important is that we share our community and you know, share our struggles with each other and lift each other up. Absolutely. So that's a wrap on Wyzant's first homeschool roundtable. I want to give each and every one of you guys a huge thank you for your time and contributing to such an important dialogue. James, Pam, Becky, Camelia, thank you so much. It's so great to have you.
Well, thanks, John.
Thank you.
For sure. If you guys are watching and you're interested in booking a lesson with any one of these incredible panelists, you'll find each of their links to their tutor profiles at Wyzant below in the video description. And don't forget, for online help in more than 270 subjects, you can search thousands of experienced tutors like our panelists anytime by heading to wyzant.com. So that's WY, Z as in zebra, A as in apple, N as in Nancy, T as in Tom.com. And of course, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to our viewers. Homeschooling, remote learning, distance learning, whatever you're calling it right now, it is a tough situation. And as we've kind of touched on, for a lot of us, it is completely new territory. We hope that you're taking away some useful and actionable information from our discussion, and share it with your friends and family. So yeah, on behalf of Wyzant, thank you so much for joining us. Stay healthy and stay safe out there.
Bye.
A big
Yeah.
wave.